Dakota Nelson, Byron Wasti, okay. And Gabe Butterick, my good longtime friend, Byron Wasti. And Gabriel Butterick grew up in Tampa, Florida, attended the University of Florida for 2 semesters, taking a variety of courses in software writing and biology. After he transferred to the Franklin W. Olin College of Engineering, he has completed 2 semesters with his focus being in software design. Dakota Nelson is an engineering student at Olin College in Boston as well, and an intern at the Black Hills Information Security Group.
Pen testing.
Yeah. And he has previously developed software for the DoD, DOE, and DARPA, and is, probably someone you'd rather hear talk than me. So and Byron is also studying electrical and computer engineering at Olin. So you're probably going to know whether you want to send your kids to Olin after this presentation. Put your hands together for our speakers. Thank you.
All right. Can everybody hear me all right? You good? Sweet. All right. So this is you. You're a really good hacker, right? You're at BSides. I'm going to make an assumption there. You're also responsible, standard disclaimer, et cetera, et cetera. So one day, you're sitting around and you think, man, I really like to go pop some boxes. So you find some hapless Gibsons out on the internet, and you do. Boom, they're yours, all right? So at some point, they're calling back to you for whatever reason. They're trying to exfiltrate some data. They're trying to call back for commands for whatever reason, and something stops them, right? And I'm going to call this a firewall, although it's probably more than a firewall. It's probably an IDS, probably firewall, proxy, the whole package, right? But firewall is easier to say. So something stops it, and you're upset. And you're trying all these different techniques, right? You try all the classics. By the time you get to DNS tunneling and it blocks it, you're dealing with something pretty good, right? You try maybe encoding the data, and just none of this is working at all. But you're still a really good hacker, right? Of course, you're at BSides. So you start looking around the network, and you see people using Twitter, and you see people using SoundCloud, and you see people using Tumblr and Google Docs. And this gives you a really cool idea, and that's where we come in. We don't actually have a logo yet. So basically what we're trying to do here is exfiltrate data over social media. So this is the team of 6. We're all Olin College students just outside Boston who have been working on this. Unfortunately, 3 of them couldn't make it, so you're just stuck with the 3 of us. So, all right, so one of the big things that we really want from this talk, sort of as speakers, is feedback from you guys. So if you do have the time, if you're willing, we have just a quick survey as to what do you think of this? Would you use it? What should we do next? It's interesting. Otherwise, please feel free to ask us questions. Come up, talk to us. We'll be here for the rest of the con. What we're trying to do here is build a tool that's useful for the community as a whole. And like I said, we're students. So what we really, really need is feedback from you guys as to what's most useful, sort of what you want to get out of it so we can build it as best we can. So one day we're sitting around. We've done CCDC. We bombed horribly, which big thank you, by the way, to everyone who puts that on. It's an incredible CTF, and we had failed really badly at it. We were looking for another project to come back on. So I emailed my boss, John Strand, over at BHIS. I was like, yo, John, there's a small group of students here. We want to work on something. What should we do? And he just emailed back, social media backdoors, just a 3-word email, and we ran with it. So while we're talking about it, Black Hills Information Security, I'm an intern there. It's a really cool company. They do really good pen testing. They actually paid to fly me out here, so big thanks to them. If you're looking for pen testing, a good company right there. Anyway, all right.
All right, so I'm going to tell you a bit about what the Sneaky Creeper is, actually. First and foremost, it is a data exfiltration framework. For the most part, it uses social media to move your information in, out. You can use it for CNC, whatever your heart can desire. It also does encoding of a variety of things. It is really flexible and adaptable. So maybe you're in a network and Twitter is your first choice, but it's not working. It's blocking you for whatever reason, and that bothers you. So you want to change to something else. It's really easy to do that. Just a few keystrokes in the command line, and you're working with something else. Also, maybe you have a preference for what encoder you want to use. It could be or it could be something else. Oh, sorry. You might have a preference of what encoder you want to use. Maybe you like one of them, maybe you like all of them. That's perfectly acceptable. It's really easy to just throw that into the command line, and everything will be working exactly as you want it to. It's really easy to add to. So we're not perfect. We don't have all of the social media or legitimate websites up there already. And maybe you want to add your own. Maybe you have a perfect idea for something that'll work for your particular job. We've made the framework really easy to add to. It's really well documented, and it'll do basically anything that you need it to do. It'll take you maybe like an afternoon of concentrated effort to get things working, and you'll have exactly what you need. It's compilable to a binary in Linux, which is really helpful, but it only works from Linux to Linux. We are working on getting it to work better for Windows. It's entirely written in Python, so we haven't done any terrible things to you, like change up the programming languages midway through. Also, Python is a really awesome and easy to understand language, so points for that.
All right, testing. So there are two main modules that we have with this setup, channels and encoders. Channels are how you send the data out, so like Twitter, SoundCloud, Google Docs, and encoders. Actually, I'll go through those later. So here we have, you read into the data into an encoder, you put it through a channel, it goes to the internet, Twitter, SoundCloud, whatever we have. You retrieve it, and then it pops out the data. We have another graphic of the same thing, a little bit nicer. So the channels that we have right now that we have built up are a file channel, Tumblr, Twitter, and SoundCloud. So the top three you'll notice are all text-based channels, but the bottom one is kind of cool just because it's sounds. So you encode the data in sound, upload it to SoundCloud. People can play that sound. It sounds terrible right now. We're working on that. But then you can download it later, get the data out, and you're good to go. So the encoders that we have right now are RSA encryption, base64 encoding, and steganography. Steganography is mainly for at least the sound and image stuff. We like to get imaging in later as well.
All right. All right, so the current status of the framework as it stands right now, and like I said, this is actually a framework. It's designed to be really easy to just sort of throw new modules in as you encounter the need for it. The current status is second Death Star. Which is to say, it's not done. There's big chunks missing, but the giant laser, the core of it, works just fine. So we'll show a demo in just a moment here, but you can actually successfully transfer data across. Hopefully this will work.
So here's a demo of using the SoundCloud channel. So here's a bunch of data I'm going to send out through SoundCloud. Kind of just random data that I put together. And here I just copy and pasted the code or commands that you needed to upload it to SoundCloud. And here I open up SoundCloud slowly. It's all very slow. So SoundCloud takes some time to process the file. I skip through all of that just because we don't want to watch and like wait for SoundCloud to be done processing. So it's done processing. Here, I type in the commands to retrieve the data, which I sped up because it's kind of annoying. Type it all in. And it's going, and it's going. And there's the data. And it was all kind of had steganography, all in SoundCloud. If you played the music, it sounded terrible. But yeah, that's SoundCloud channel.
All right. You'll actually click there. So yeah, basically the text there was encoded into an audio file and then uploaded to SoundCloud. So from sort of the network perspective, it looks just like someone uploading regular audio to SoundCloud, sort of nothing unusual going on there. But then on the other side, you're just one command line command away from pulling that data out, extracting it, and data exfiltration commands going in either direction you want.
All right, so this is a quick demo of the Twitter module. As you can see, you've got a lot of information in that command line. That was just me sending a little message onto the Twitter account that we have set up. So you can see there's nothing new there. I'm going to refresh the page real quick, and then suddenly new stuff is on there. And it's all gibberish and nonsense because it's in B64. But now I'm just going to quickly enter or make a minor change to the original line to make it receive the data instead of sending it. And, of course, not echo anything. And it'll pull down the latest tweet in the timeline, which is, hey, B-Sides, how's it going?
Yeah, so fundamentally, just the whole idea is that it's really easy to run your data through any number of encoders you want. You can encrypt it, then base64 encode it. You can do that in opposite order. You can do whatever encoders you have, chain them all together, toss it up on a channel, and then pull it down on the other side and automatically run it through those encoders in reverse to pull the clear text data out.
Yeah. So this technique has been seen in the wild just recently, actually. A Russian APT group, Hammer Toss, they had a system retrieving commands via legitimate web services Sounds very familiar. Obtaining commands via images, we don't have that yet, but sounds very familiar. And uploading files to cloud storage services, which we kind of have with Google Docs. But so this type of stuff has been seen in the wild, and this was actually a FireEye report, which was like 6 days ago. So it's very recent. It's like a new type of attack vector that we're trying to bring attention to.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, so we're going to try to finish this out with just getting feedback from you guys. So we've built so far sort of a proof of concept. It's a little shaky, it's a framework, it's a proof of concept, right? And we're curious as to where we should go next. So again, we've got the survey right up there in the upper right-hand corner. If you want to go to that, we'd love as much feedback as we can get from you guys. So we've got a couple ideas in mind for the future of this. One of them is just push-button data exfiltration testing. So we've basically got a client and a server. You run the client on whatever compromised host you're trying to test. You run it inside the network. You check the boxes that say, I'd like to test all of these different methods of data exfiltration, and then it tries them all. And out on the server registers which ones worked, which ones didn't, and can print out a report for you, boom, done. Rather than having to do the manual sort of data exfiltration like, well, can I email it out? Well, can I open an outbound socket? Well, can I do, sort of a one-stop shop for doing this sort of testing that's easy to add to and easy to change. Versus sort of a full-featured implant. Think more GCAT here, like we just saw not too long ago. More of an actual implant that's sort of made for doing very offensive penetration testing versus the sort of broad spectrum exfiltration testing above. Versus maybe there's a third option we're completely missing here. If there's any third-party tools that anyone knows that we can integrate into, sort of ways to actually turn these communication channels into more than just a channel and into sort of a fully useful package, we'd love to hear about it. So we have a couple ideas in mind, but we're looking to you guys to figure out which way we should go next. And as well, sort of, now what? Even if we stick with it as we've got right now, so what modules do you guys want to see? What services are out there that are really cool? What sort of encoders are really useful for you guys? Which sort of things have been known to get past firewalls, past DLP solutions in the past? We're looking for these kind of things so we can roll them in. Like we said, it's really easy to add new modules, and we'd love to keep adding new ones and making this more of a fully featured framework. So whatever feedback you guys can give us is fantastic. So if you're interested in going and grabbing it, it's all up on GitHub. It's under active development. There's a couple pull requests open right now, and we're always happy to see more. So it's completely open source. Go take a look. We're working on some really cool stuff as the next steps. So we'd love to have as many eyes on it and as many people using it as we can. So if you're interested, there it is. If you have any questions, I think, yeah.
There's a microphone in the middle here that should be live. Anyone?
At least one question, please.
Otherwise, I have to put down in the form that there were no questions.
There we go.
And they lose their scholarships. Please, won't you help?
The Twitter account that you were exfiltrating the data from, were you creating the Twitter account, or was it already available for employee?
So you do have to create an account on whatever service this is. I don't know, it's kind of hard to see in the very small text up there, but basically when you run the command, you have to specify 3 things. The first one is just which encoders you want to use. The second one is which channel you want to use. And the third one is just a JSON configuration string. So it basically says, for Twitter, use this username, and here's an API key. Yeah, and for SoundCloud, it's basically the same thing. Here's the username, here's the password, and here's the one file that you want to go find. So yeah, you do have to manually create the accounts right now. We can't really automate the account creation process because it turns out Twitter doesn't like people creating accounts automatically. But that's a relatively easy thing to do because Twitter wants to make it as easy as possible. And then from there, you can use it to your heart's content.
So on Twitter, so the limit is very small. Even if you are encoding, you'll not be exfiltrate tons of data. So how do you plan about that?
So what we actually do right now is so Twitter's 140 characters. We reserve, I think it's the first 10 characters from everything for sort of a miniature packet protocol. So basically what we do is however much data you feed in, we chop it up into the size pieces that fit into that channel. And basically when you write a new channel, there's a parameter you specify that says like, this is the maximum text length of this channel. And it just cuts it up into those size pieces, appends a little header to the front of it, and then puts it all up. And then when you go and grab it on the other side, it automatically pulls down all of them, reassembles them, and prints them out as one full package again.
So thanks.
Hi. Didn't want you to lose your scholarship. Had just a couple of quick ideas. One of them, would you consider, so a lot of us use something like Textsecure, where it doesn't actually do SMS, MMS encryption anymore, it rather does full data. Would it perhaps be a good idea to maybe consider encoding it for use by download by Textsecure, perhaps using Google Voice or Skype, since that's really common in the workplace? Also, as another idea, since you said it could compile to a pre-compiled binary, maybe it would be a really good idea in order to make it look like a more legit binary so that IDSs won't pick it up as easily whenever it's running.
Sounds good. So you're saying we should basically just encode it over a VoIP stream and then send the VoIP stream to a server on the outside?
That way it looks like any other phone call.
Yeah, it looks good. All right, that's a good idea.
I like that idea.
I like that one.
Hey guys, have you thought about any defenses against these kinds of communication channels, and how would you defend against it if you had like a social media platform?
Well, usually there's a normal or a natural amount of data flowing through any of these channels. So you could watch that, be sure that it's not fluctuating, because if it suddenly goes from like a few megabytes to like 500 megabytes, you think maybe somebody's moving something that they're not supposed to. Also, you could just straight up strong arm it and blacklist websites that could be used like this.
Or probably also whitelist, just because there's so many of these different websites. Like basically, we can build a module for any website that lets you put data up to it and then get that data later, which is a lot of them. So yeah, like Gabe said, just sort of watching the signatures as it fluctuates. It's a little harder for command and control because there's not a lot of data there going across. Honestly, unless you're one of the content providers, unless you're Twitter or something, I'm not sure, to be totally honest.
What would you do if you were Twitter?
So one of the things, currently something we don't have yet is intelligent sort of rate limiting or jitter in there rather. So right now what it does is it just goes right up to the rate limit and then sits and waits for a little while and then goes right up to the rate limit again. So things like that where there's just sudden huge bursts of activity are maybe a little weird and worth looking into. We haven't really done a long-term test on our accounts yet to see if you do like suspicious stuff for long enough if Twitter will find you. But I mean, the account that you've been using for Twitter testing has been running for a while, and we haven't used it for any kind of large scale, but like we've been testing with it here and there, and nothing bad has happened to it yet. And then you're also making the assumption, right, like maybe even if Twitter catches it, any of the other platforms might not. That's one of the problems here is there's just such a breadth of things available. Even if one does a good job catching you, the others might not. Cool. Oh, questions?
One more question?
Multi-channel, I'm sorry. Do you have multi-channel capability built in?
So we don't yet. That's one of the things we're looking into as far as integration into further tools is sort of a spectrum of, specify multiple channels and send fragments over each. Right now you just, basically you just have to say like all of this data goes to this channel, this data goes to this channel. It's easy to script. Again, it's just a single command line. And you just echo data into it, you just pipe it in. So it's pretty easy to script, so you can do it manually, but we don't have anything built in for that yet, no.
What's your message size limit for SoundCloud? And have you thought about also using photo sharing sites as a place to dump your data?
Yeah, so the message kind of limit for SoundCloud is really just how big the sound file is. I can't remember off the top of my head, but SoundCloud does have a limit to how much you can upload.
180 minutes for the free account total.
Yeah.
So once you've uploaded something, you'll have to delete it in order to upload more once you've hit the 180 minutes.
But you can upload a ton of data via SoundCloud, and we are looking into image stuff. That's what I really want to get up and running. I think that'd be fun. But yeah, image stuff is definitely on the way.
One of the problems with the image sharing sites is they usually compress your image when it goes up. So if you do some sort of steganography into it, once the compression process is done, it's really difficult to extract out. So it's something we're looking into to see if there are any that don't compress or if we can find some techniques that are resistant to compression.
Just a suggestion for Exfil from corporate networks. A lot of the time, all of those websites will be banned, but you can always get to the internal Microsoft Outlook Web Access Server. So that might be an interesting one to look at. Also maybe using Outlook Web Access in a way that's non-obvious, like rather than just sending emails, like say creating calendar entries and then deleting those calendar entries and then checking those.
Excellent, okay.
Also what I would find interesting is if you could do a bidirectional, like standard in, standard out channel rather than just messages. So if you could have a standard in, standard out channel, you could run SSH through that. You know, it would be slow, but if you could achieve that through any of these channels, that'd be interesting.
That would be awesome. Yeah, so one of the weird things is it's asynchronous. So you just put it up there and you have to check it later. But yeah, we're not sure whether we just do periodic checking and then sort of try to stream it through like that. But that is a good idea. We'd love to look into it. So.
Do you have any type of checksum that you're doing for data when you're putting it up or taking it down? Like for SoundCloud, my biggest concern would be accidental compression or mistakes because they do some type of compression or streaming. I'm guessing you haven't run into that yet?
Yeah, so with SoundCloud, it's interesting. If you try and download it just from SoundCloud, it does try to compress it, or if you just try and play it, you can strip it just from the header. I do this like HTTP pull request thing. It's a little jank. I don't know how long it's going to keep working, but you can just get the full. It's not compressed at all. But yeah, definitely, I think looking into kind of getting a hash type system so we can do checking on it would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point and a really good idea. Sweet.
All right, thank you.